All right, I'm Steve Pollack, President of Japan Society of Northern California, and thank you everybody for joining us today for our program about entering the Japanese healthcare market. We're very excited to have not only all the people here in this room, but we have a big crowd online as well, which is why I'm trying to get us rolling on our start our program. Let me start off by introducing Elton Satuski, who is our host here at Wilson Sonsini, and he will give you a welcome from Wilson Sonsini, and thank you for coming.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks everyone for coming, and we love using this room. We did a big remodel and it was less functional last year, so hopefully the IT will work flawlessly for everyone remotely in Japan and elsewhere. And again, thanks for organizing all this. Thanks for coming, and I'll hand it back to you, Steve.
All right, let me also welcome Yoshiko Stoll from RAPS, who has collaborated with us on this program along with Wilson Sonsini and CMIC, and she's going to introduce RAPS and say a few words.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. So my name is Yoshiko Stoll. I'm from the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, mouthful. It's RAPS. I'm the chair for San Francisco chapter. We have information desk right there, but we are a nonprofit organization with over 30,000 members globally. And we cover device and drug and professional development for regulatory affairs professionals and allies.
Thanks, Yoshiko. It's really nice to have a good partner. She not only helped us promote the event, but brought colleagues to help us organize and sit at the reception desk and other things too. So thank you for doing that. And then I want to thank CMIC, who has also been very involved in organizing the program and encouraged one of our speakers, Shimoto-san, to come all the way from Japan for us, and also connected us to Saito-san through RAPS, who also joined us from Japan. So thank you to them. So today's program actually has two purposes. One is the main content purpose, which is to talk about what is the journey like, how should companies interested in entering the Japanese healthcare market think about getting into Japan? Like what kinds of things are different about the market there? What should they be doing to take advantage of opportunities? What kind of challenges do they meet? And so generally speaking, it should be informational and useful to people who are working in the life sciences or health tech sector here in the US and thinking about Japan. The second purpose is actually as a kickoff for our big annual healthcare conference, our U.S. Japan Healthcare Conference. And this is something that has taken place every year since that was first started in 2014 and by U.S. Japan MedTech Frontiers, another nonprofit organization, and then has taken place annually since then, with the exception of the COVID years. And Japan Society became the principal organizer of the event in 2022. And so this will be our fourth year of doing a big conference program in Japan. And so if you plan to be in Japan in the week of September 15th, we hope you'll be able to join us in either Tokyo or Osaka, our two venues for the program. The content of the program this year is focused on how AI and science are driving the future of medicine. And so we have a number of speakers, panelists, and various people representing both the biopharma industry as well as the medtech industry on our panel. And in addition, one of the highlights of the program is that we have 12 startup companies that are engaged in the life sciences sector and building their companies here in the US who are going to Japan as part of our startup showcase. And we have some of those companies here in the room today. Very excited to have them join us. And so the second purpose of today's program is really to serve as a lead in to our conference in Japan, to get people excited about traveling there to meet with our audience of Japanese corporate and government and academic people who come to hear the conference, and then engage with some really good networking and hopefully come out with some connections that help them with their efforts to enter the Japanese market. So today's program is divided into two panels. The first one will look at some issues related to the Japanese market, kind of what's going on in the healthcare market in Japan, what kinds of things are happening in the regulatory scene, as well as what are some opportunities on the funding side for people who are engaged in raising money for their businesses. And then the second panel includes several veterans from our previous Japan conferences who will share their experiences and what they learned from going to Japan, kind of how that has developed for them, and what kinds of advice they have for people who might be going to Japan as part of our conference or for some other activities. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our first panel. Tomoko Ishikura will introduce the people on her panel and come on up and tell us about what's going on in healthcare in Japan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first part of the panel. I don't know how this chair works. Try not to. So grab, and we will start from the. Okay. Yeah, we will start from the round of introduction, especially to people just flew from Japan. So my name is Tomoko Ishikura. I'm currently a managing partner at the venture capital called Kickoff Ventures. So we invest in the early stage healthcare companies in a space, what we call the future of healthcare. So mainly AI empowered healthcare, longevity like health span, as well as deep tech in healthcare. And I actually asked everyone to come up with one recommendation about Japan, given I'm assuming that some of you guys are going in September. And one thing that I really recommend if you haven't booked your hotel is a place called the Dormy Inn. And it's a business hotel, but it comes with a hot spring, and they have a free noodle in the middle of the night, and they have a free ice creams. And if you're Japanese, they have a comic book like section, and you can bring those comic books to your room. So that's my suggestion. So maybe Yoshi, he just arrived from Japan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yoshimoto from CIMIC Holdings, and I'm now working at the consultation and navigation unit in that company and providing the support to the emerging biopharma who is willing to enter to Japanese market, or the mid-size and also the startup companies in Japan who is expanding their business to the United States or Europe. So we have maybe 10, 15 people who has a lot of experience in the Japanese pharmaceutical industry. So we know we are providing as much service as possible depending on the client's needs. Thank you very much.
Anything you recommend in Japan?
During these days, maybe it's July, August, and September, I would not recommend you to come to Japan because it's very humid and temperature is extremely high. So that's not a recommendation, but not recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you for Japan Society for inviting me to this panel, and thank you, Tomoko-san. My name is Yuko Terasawa, and I'm representing Nozomi Med Alliance. My partners and I, Dan Burnett of Theranova, I just saw him walk in, Rob Clare of Hika Bio, and myself, we co-founded Nozomi Med Alliance to support to both directions, global medtechs to enter Japan market, but in addition to Japanese medtechs to enter the US and global market. We try to help in terms of finding strategic partners, KOLs, clinicians to help bring new healthcare innovations to both markets. So thank you very much. My advice for Japan, I would say the food is excellent, the quality of food. And if you like to explore the bottom floor of various big department stores is a food heaven. So I would say check that out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hikaru Saito, a partner of Saisei Ventures. Saisei Venture is a biotechnology-focused venture capital based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Japan. And we are focusing on the early stage biotech investment. Actually, Saisei is a Japanese word meaning regeneration. So we are very interested in new mechanism for the regeneration, including cell therapy, gene therapy, and the regenerative medicine. And personally, I was a research scientist, and then I was working at a pharmaceutical company, and I did some of the investment arm in Menlo Park. So I used to live in around here about 5 years, 2017 to 2022. I'm very happy to be here because I'm very familiar with some face previously, shared the enjoyable time. And thank you very much for your time. And my recommendation, I like hiking. So if you come to Tokyo, so I recommend you to go to the Mount Takao. It's relatively close to the Tokyo, center of Tokyo. It takes 1 hour from the center of Tokyo, and you can see the lots of forest and the creeks, and also some fun, waterfalls. And if you like nature, you can you can enjoy. And if you come to the Osaka area, I would recommend to go to the Global Expo Osaka right now, so you can see until the end of I think October. So you can see lots of exhibition and Japanese culture, the Japanese technology you can see. So thank you very much.
So maybe we can start from the Japanese market. So we were talking about the market regularly and then the funding. So first of all, like what are the exciting things that you guys have been seeing in Japan, and why those startups should come to Japan? Maybe Hikaru, you have an idea?
I think it's a good timing to coming to Japan and investing in Japan. So because of the, there is a lot of innovation coming from Japan, and lots of, if you can see some of the collaborator, like a pharma partner or clinical partner and a manufacturing partner. So you can see lots of, potential partner in the USA, in Japan. And recently, younger generation is coming up, and there is, lots of, people willing to working at the venture company and working at more, not big company, more refer working at venture company. So that is mindset is changing right now. So I would, you can see lots of cultural change to the next generation.
So it's easier even for the US startups to go to Japan and then have an office
Yes.
operate as. Okay, thank you.
Japan, the statistic is it's the third largest healthcare market. In addition, for medtech, Japan actually imports 60% from outside Japan. So in addition, I think key factor right now, Japan is a society with growing aging population. So addressing, it's a critical issue in Japan to address. So for instance, monitoring patients, or also because the young generation is populations not growing. So the lack of healthcare staff to take care of patients within Japan is a big challenge. So the more technologies that could be applied to address those issues is important. Another opportunity, we feel.
Thank you. In addition to Yuko's comment, again, Japan is now the third largest market for the pharmaceutical medicines, and especially for the new medicines or the patented drug, Japan is the second largest market still. And having said that, there's an opportunity for the foreign biotech or startup to come into Japan. The one, the most important point is that Japan is covered by one national health insurance system. So you don't need to worried about the payers negotiation or the government negotiation. Once you gain the approval from the regulatory authority, then your drug will be listed on the price listing within 60 days or 90 days at the most. So there are high predictability of your potential sales. And in addition to that, from the regulatory or the medical viewpoint, I think the adherence to the, for example, clinical study protocol is quite high. So you don't need to worry about quality of your data. And also there are many scientists and physicians who are known well about around the world. The market viewpoint and also the clinical conduct viewpoint, I would recommend you to, to learn more about Japanese, but we are trying to attract you. But there are many misunderstandings, I would say. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Maybe tying to Yuko's point first. So you mentioned that it's like a aging society, so there are a lot of market opportunities. And I believe that you mentioned that there are several funds that support those companies who are especially targeting the like Japan-specific programs, healthcare programs. Can you talk a bit more about that?
In the biotechnology space, so there is a Japan, kind of R&D funding agency called AMED, which is a kind of Japanese version of the NIH, and they are providing lots of support to the startup company, biotechnology company. So the program name is, AMED Pharmaceutical Venture Strengthening Program. So this AMED subsidizes some specific pharmaceutical product of the company, which invested by AMED certified VC. There is a certified VC. So for 30 VC certified already, and you can collaborate with the AMED certified VC to get subsidy for the pharmaceutical product until obtaining a human clinical POC. So that is a huge, benefit for the startup company, and of course the venture capital, because of that this is the non-dilutive funding. So that is huge benefit for the startup companies, I think.
Thank you. Maybe two questions. Is it only for pharmaceutical products, or AMED is like has different programs for even like an AI medical device? And another question is, what are the like restrictions, like what those US startup need to know to apply to that?
Yeah, so in this program is focusing on pharmaceutical product therapeutics, and you should have to have a kind of Japan operation, like having a Japan, office or Japan R&D operation. That is, one of the requirement. And also you have to get some funding from the, AMED certified VC. So that is the eligibility. And also, AMED is providing other funding opportunity rather than, biotechnology opportunity, like manufacturing or some medical device or something. So I think you should reach out to the kind of website at AMED so you can see the subsidy for the available currently right now.
And you can see the list of VCs as well, so
Yes,
they
that's
can
right.
reach out. Yeah,
Yes, that's
great.
right.
Thank you. Thank you. And for those who are interested in entering the Japanese market, so finding the VC and then getting money, applying to AMED, having subsidiary, that's one of the ways to get in. How are the other ways that are practical and reasonable? Maybe you support a lot of US startups to come to the Japanese market. What would you suggest for them to start?
Advocate the Japan market, finding appropriate strategic partners. It does take time, and having collaborators or support system, like that's what we do at Nozomi, that have people in Japan that knows which companies are interested in specific technologies, that will definitely support. And to find clinicians if they need for clinical trials or support in the regulatory angles. So having someone to help you navigate, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I think there is a big like, business culture difference, and especially how the decisions are made, how people communicate. And one of the things I find it sometimes difficult is the lack of transparency of the process from the Japanese partners. So I think having someone like Nozomi or even the people who are organizing this event, like I've been to Japan with them, and then they are a great communicator. They are well connected with the Japanese ecosystem as well as here. So like having that kind of people like helping navigate the negotiation communication would be probably ideal. And you mentioned a little bit about the clinical trials. Can you elaborate a bit?
Commenting on that point, I mean, you said that there might be some issue in transparency. The one of the reasons why the people is feeling like untransparent is that maybe the language differences. Because majority of the people who is not living in Japan cannot understand Japanese. So that was the hurdle. But if you conduct a clinical study, you can use English for your case card or communicating with the physicians or key opinion leaders or clinical research associates. So now the regulation is almost harmonized under the ICH guidelines. So you don't need to worry about that point, I mean, regulatory. And for the communications, you can conduct using English, conduct a clinical trial using English as a language. And ultimately, the PMDA established a pilot program to accept English-based CTD, Common Technical Document. It's only the pilot program, but maybe within a few years, you can submit your dossier, which was already submitted to the US FDA or EMA. So at that time, maybe you don't need to worry anything about the conduct of the clinical study. That's my understanding, and I hope it happens.
Yeah, thank you. And I think all of you mentioned the KOL, key opinion leaders, and I think it's very important not just for pharmaceutical product, but even like AI in healthcare. Can anyone elaborate more, like why KOLs in Japan are especially, I don't know, like influential is a good word, but why is it important to connect with them, and then how can we find them and connect with them?
KOLs definitely are important because if they, as a clinician, say, we're not going to adopt this, then your chance for adoption is really not there. So they have you need to talk to them to get their opinion. What do they want to see in a product, and also how, what would it take for them to adopt? You need to understand that.
And I think it's the same in the United States, but especially Japan, the community is much smaller. Like all the KOLs, like everyone knows them. And also Japan is a quite hierarchical society. So it's very important to talk to the top people and then have their support even for other physicians to adapt to the technology. Okay, so we talked about, is there anything you want to add about market?
Yes. So we have a US portfolio company, 5 portfolio company, and I support some of the, Japan market penetration. So main reason is, there is some funding available in Japan. So I sometimes, give the hints. There is a three things. One is the, developing a, sustainable Japan operation, how to create Japan operation, number one. Number two is how to find a collaborator, like or Japanese IP or Japanese collaborator, including KOL. It's kind of, link to the Japan story. That is one good story to obtain the Japan, funding. And also third one is the, if you have proprietary technology, so you can bring in Japan ecosystem. That is very beneficial for Japan because, this funding is come from the tax. So therefore, government always think about what is the benefit for Japan. So in that case, in three things, operation and IP collaborator, and also some, what's your proprietary expertise bringing to the Japan. So that is a hint, I think.
Thank you. And I think you kind of shared on a perspective as an investor, what kind of traits you look in when you look at the US startups. And maybe we can talk a little bit about the funding. We touched upon AMED funding. And I was also thinking I went to Osaka for an event organized by Japanese government in May. And there were quite a lot of VCs came with me to Japan. And then their portfolio company already had some collaboration with the Japanese market. So working with the VC like Kickoff Ventures, we invest in the US companies, but our LPs are Japanese and I am Japanese. So like working with a VC who have some connection with Japan can also help you to understand who you can work with. Also, what I've been outside of Japan for 15 years, so I'm not so up to date. But what I've been seeing is that this kind of like a buzzword, deep tech, has been really, really popular in Japan. There are a lot of conferences about deep tech. Many Japanese VCs are interested in investing in a company who has deep tech, including outside Japan. So if you think your technology can be called deep tech, you can call it. And then there is an accelerator in Shibuya, like Tokyo Land is trying to turn Shibuya into this like a location for deep tech. So there are a lot of programs and ecosystem which is already connected to many corporations as well as VCs who are interested in working with or investing in the companies like yours. And also one thing I wanted to mention is that in Japan, CVC is still has probably the biggest presence when it comes to funding, in addition to government funds. So I would say maybe like 50% of VCs are CVCs. So they can bring not only the funding, but also some strategic benefits to your company. And also one beauty of working with CVC, or maybe it's the reason why deep tech is popular in Japan, is that Japan has quite a longer term view. So many companies are okay for you to take some time to work on some capital intensive technology. So that's something I think it's a good like a quality of Japan. They are patient in some way.
I would like to add one thing about how you can enter to Japanese market. So it was briefly explained by Hikaru, and the finding the collaborator, where you have to set up your own office, subsidiary office. But if you have some asset and if you already identify the target patient population, and that if that patient is there are many that kind of patient in Japan, then alternative option is that you can conduct a clinical trial even though you do not have the office in Japan. Some of the CROs based in Japan can support you using the ICCC in-country clinical caretaker system so that you can conduct a clinical study using the CRO like us as an agent. That's the the one with the alternative option. Maybe it takes me two years or something like that to conduct a clinical trial. So during that period, you should further discuss what the best way for your company to enter to Japan. That's one of the option I would recommend. Thank you.
We can talk about maybe one thing I want to talk about is what are the common mistakes that you've seen when the foreign startups approaching the Japanese market, and if you have any advice for how they can be avoided.
So I think it does take time. That's one thing. So you can't expect the term sheet immediately or quick as the US partner or US company. So that's it's just Japan has a process of reviewing, and they're more conservative in nature. So they will take time. So you need to be patient. But once that partnership secures, then it's a long-term partnership. So that's the positive aspect at the end, but being patient.
Yes, I think in the Western company, including USA, is there is a strong execution power. So I feel you can push in terms of the deal and also projects. But in Japan, so basically Japan business custom is to make a relationship and credibility. So first, so it takes sometimes a long time. So I don't recommend you to push, drive, always drive the process. But sometimes you have to be patient. And also I talk about the funding. So if you get some government funding, you have to make a long time relationship with a government guy or funding guy, and you must be report some of the what's going on to the government agency. So I think you may have some stress in terms of the reporting or something like that. But please be patient and try to make a good relationship with the funding agency and the other stakeholder. That is my one of the advice.
I fully agree the observation provided by Yuko. The decision-making system, it takes time in general. So I would recommend that maybe the alliance manager or alliance manager management is quite important. So that you need to understand who is the decision maker, when the decision will be made, and how long it takes. So if you can fully understand that the decision-making system for your counterpart or Japanese collaboration, then you'll be ready, or you'll be ready for the further discussion. But good thing is that, again, this is in general statement. Once the decision is made, Japanese company will just keep moving. So that's the positive point, I would say. Thank you.
Maybe I have 2 points. One is, I think, especially when you are talking to potential strategic partners, they really want to understand your technology, and they want to know that you understand technology, you understand the problem. And then often, sometimes the US startups are more focused on like a business opportunity. This is going to be like this much revenue. And I've seen that can be kind of not appealing to Japanese strategic partners. So I guess my advice is to, kind of tailoring your pitch to talk more about your technology and then show that you want to expert, because those companies that you're talking to, they believe they are an expert, and then they don't want to work with you unless they feel like you also understand the space as much as they do. Another thing is, if you could look up the partner that you are talking to see if they have any experience of working with US startups, because if they have experience, they've done it before, they have the like decision making process, so it might be easier. But if they have no experience, you might run into even like a longer time frame, even more challenges that you won't expect, especially when it comes to like decision making. I want to see if we have any questions from the audience. Otherwise, I can ask more questions. Go ahead. When we are entering the Japanese market, and then want to make sure that your product does not infringe any existing patents in Japan, or breaking any product liability in Japan. I know I'm sounding very ignorant. Yeah, that's your question? Should you use the Japanese lawyer or US lawyer? Anyone has a suggestion? I see. Oh, I think if you have a strategic partner, for instance, being in charge of selling in the Japanese market, I believe they will support, because the responsibility would also come to them as well. And I think, like, I used to work for medical device company before, and then they will have their own legal team conduct the patent infringement, like make sure that there is no such a case. Yeah, but that was the case. So I believe they will support you. It's your decision whether you're gonna trust that or you want to conduct your own. Yeah, and I think it depends on your like agreement as well, who will be responsible after all.
I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney, so that I cannot answer to your question directly. But for speaking about the medicines, the patent system is quite different. Of course, there's a product patent or use patent. That system is safe, but how to use that patent system to the pricing, that's a quite different. So maybe your counterpart or your collaborator, Japanese company, knows very well about that system. But if you have someone within your side who knows very well about the patent, that may be helpful for you to negotiate with your collaborator.
What is the talent pool in Japan for scientists, engineering, financial folks?
Where are they?
What is the talent availability?
I see.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you can answer. Yeah.
Thank you for asking. So we are making a new company based on the technology from academia, and basically in the biotech field, scientists does not have a knowledge and the expertise for the commercialization. So therefore, each venture capital have a talent pool. So from our company, so likely the portfolio company having a Japan operation and US operation. So we have some pool, and of course other VC have a pool, bridge person, from academia to commercial, and English speaker, and like that. So of course there is some search firm in terms of the talent, but you may reach out to the kind of venture capital because of the they have a good source of talent.
Yeah. Your question was like the quality of the talent, experience, availability of the talent. Yeah. Maybe you can answer better. I have some comment.
You will find excellent researchers, engineers, talent in Japan. The technical talent you will find. I think in Japan, not as many startups, because not enough CEOs in Japan. That's in general the tendency. There are a lot of technical people, but CEOs that have the experience of running a company or startups are less than here.
We have a question from somebody in our online audience, and she says that she is planning to move to Japan to do a startup venture in Japan and speaks fluent Japanese. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice for people who actually speak Japanese and are interested in going into the Japanese market. Is something different for them? And just in general, what is the importance of being able to speak Japanese or communicate in Japanese if you're a startup? Is that a necessity if you're going to be successful in Japan, or can you actually do a lot of what you need to do only speaking English?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely it helps to speak Japanese because some companies or staff, they don't speak very much English. So it definitely helps.
I think it's like even VCs, some VCs only speak Japanese. So it's definitely a plus if you speak Japanese. Yeah. But I've seen many foreign like CEOs in Japan lately and several like French American VCs as well. So I don't think it's impossible, but I guess you have more opportunities for collaborations, even funding, if you speak the language. Yeah. Is there, sorry, I think we are almost at the time, but do you have any one piece of advice for, especially those who are going to Japan? Like, is there anything they can prepare, think about in advance before we close?
So the PMDA or MHLW, those are the important regulatory authorities in Japan. They used to provide the information only in Japanese, but last 2 years, a couple of years, they are providing the English-based information. There are many information. Actually, unfortunately, the design of the web is not so good. So, but using maybe the GPT or the generative AI system, you can find the English-based very important information from PMDA or MHLW regulatory authorities. That's one thing I would recommend you to, approach or reach out to that kind of information.
For those who are going to go to the event in September in Tokyo and Osaka, knowing which companies may be attending so that you can preset meetings and hopefully make use of that time, that week, that you can meet with companies directly. But also after the event, definitely do your follow-ups and keep that conversation going. It's important. Yeah.
Please reach out and go out. First of all, attend the conference in September, right? 16 or 18, yeah. And some, connect. You can see, you can meet kind of connector to bridge, Japan and outside Japan. And also October, we will have some big event, Bio Japan, early October in Yokohama, close to the Tokyo area. And all, AMED Ninte certified VC attend this event, and you can directly contact with kind of AMED certified VC. And also you can attend some of the night event organized by some, ecosystem developer.
And bring a lot of business cards. I often forget, but people love business cards. So that's my last advice. And I think we are time. So yeah, thank you so much for coming from Japan and then sharing all the insights. I learned so much. And we have a networking event. I hope you can stay so you can connect with each of them separately as well. So thank you so much.
Okay. In this panel this evening, we're going to be talking about, making the most of your visit to Japan and as it relates to the U.S. Japan Healthcare Conference. And so this group has commonality in that we've all been to the U.S. JHC at least once. And we're going to draw on our experiences to help some of the folks that are going with us this year and some of the people who may want to go with us in the future. So it'll be a fun discussion to have. So my name is Ryan McGinnis, not Kirk Zeller. And I'm a commercial general manager over at Triple Ring Technologies, which is headquartered here in Silicon Valley with offices in Boston, up in Toronto, and also in Copenhagen. We are a corporate growth lab. We also do technology and product development, and we do R&D work for the U.S. government. So we are a world-class design house, and we build systems for healthcare almost entirely. So medical technology and life sciences. So if the rest of you can please introduce yourself quickly, that would be wonderful. Starting with you, Pema.
I am the co-founder and CEO of Malkova. We are a medical device company. We are a medical imaging company based on the east side of San Francisco Bay. And our core technology is a new invention on CT. As the workhorse of radiology, we came up with a new methodology of doing CT imaging and developed the science of it. The first vertical is the breast imaging, breast cancer imaging that we've been following for 4 years now in the US. We're entering the clinical phase in Q1 of next year with our first clinical trial at Yale University. Our second vertical is on stroke imaging. For both of these reasons, I was quite interested in going to Japan and learn a little bit because both are huge problems in Japan. That's about me.
Hi, everyone. Mika Nishimura. I've been in medical device industry now for over 30 years. I see my first boss, Margot Ortiga-Sweat, again in the audience. Margot came with us to Japan last year. I now have a portfolio career where I am a venture investor. Unfortunately, it's across the other ocean, transatlantic investments in health tech and in medical devices. But I am originally from Japan. I've dealt a lot with Japanese market. And in addition to my venture role now, I also serve on boards of 2 U.S. medical device companies. One is Accuray, which is radiation oncology equipment manufacturer. They have a large presence in Japan. Another is SI Bone, which is in spinal implant. And then 2 Japanese public companies, Hoya, which acquired Pentax many years ago. So they do endoscopy as well as some other medical devices. And finally, NEC, which is more on the AI side. So that's my relationship with Japan. So I've been a member of this group for the last 4 years. Went last year to Japan with all these guys and 2 years prior to that. So I've seen firsthand how effective and productive the visit can be if you plan it right. So I'm eager to hear what Payman and Scott's experience have been like since last year's visit.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Shao, co-founder and CEO of Luminopia. We are a digital health company using virtual reality technology to create treatments for a variety of eye diseases. So our lead product is FDA cleared for the treatment of amblyopia, also known as lazy eye, which is the #1 cause of vision loss in kids. We have studied the technology in multiple clinical trials and are commercially available now. We recently passed 10,000 prescriptions in the US. So we're scaling up and thinking about ex-US markets as well. I had the opportunity to join the program and the trip last year and had many productive and interesting conversations with Japanese strategics. So looking forward to sharing more about our experience.
Okay, so one of the wonderful things about the USJHC is it's not all business. And we bring a good group of friends over from primarily Silicon Valley, but across the United States. And we get to immerse ourselves in the Japanese culture and get to see quite a bit of Japan outside of the conferences that we do and the meetings that we do. So to start off, I'd like to ask you all about a memorable moment you had last year outside of the conferences. And I've sprung this question on all of you since we didn't prepare, but I'll start so you can think as I go through mine. How about? So last year we came up out of Kumamoto which was the second meeting of the week. And my wife pretty much always goes with me now and has a wonderful time. So many of our families do come along, and that's awfully nice to do. And we came through Hiroshima and went to the Peace Memorial Museum and Park and spent most of the day there, which was an amazing experience, but very deeply moving and difficult. But then we left the memorial, walked down to an incredibly beautiful rooftop deck bar and drank our sorrows away, and then went down onto the street and found an amazing Hiroshima okonomiyaki restaurant and had a wonderful time. So very wonderful and deep experiences that you can have as you're working your way through Japan and doing these things. So
For me, the highlight was a sumo tournament. Was it Kumamoto?
Fukuoka, Fukuoka, we went to sumo, yeah.
Elton sponsored that thing. I mean, arranged the whole thing. It was wonderful. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Scott and I went karaoke. I don't remember that much from that night, but it was fun.
I want to ask whether you ate horse meat, which is a specialty of Kumamoto.
Yes, 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 absolutely.
My memorable one was actually the first one that I went, which was 3 years ago, I believe. And one of our traveling companions, an entrepreneur originally from Brazil, but had a company in the U.S., was traveling with us, and we got off at Shinkobe station, off the bullet train. And as we're about to go through the exit, he starts patting his pockets, and he had left his wallet on the bullet train. So I went up to the station master, explained the situation. And, he said, let us call the train, see if, somebody can, one of our crew members can go, to his seat, because we had assigned seats, and find his wallet. Well, they tried, but there was already another passenger and they didn't want to disturb that passenger. So, his advice was, okay, call this number, this lost and found number, when the train pulls into the final destination, Hakata, around 9 o'clock in the evening, and I'm sure the cleaning crew will find your wallet. And this Brazilian wasn't believing that, right? Like, and he thought like he had lost all his credit cards and his driver's license and the Japanese yen cash, and his crestfallen. And the rest of us who have been to Japan many times kept reassuring him that, like, we bet money that you're going to find your wallet. And sure enough, when one of the Japan Society members called the lost and found number, they had found it, everything was intact. They would express ship it to his hotel, and everything was fine. So that's one of our memorable experiences.
I've got many good ones to choose from. Actually, one in a similar vein. When I landed in Tokyo, my bag had gotten taken not by purpose, but by somebody else who had the exact same bag as me. So I had to go through that whole process and managed to link up with them and get my bag. But I would say maybe my favorite moment would be we had scheduled some meetings in advance with potential strategics, and I think that'll be a theme that we touch on as we continue. But one of the meetings we had was with a strategic based in Osaka, and we were talking about the city and what to do. And I apologize, I've forgotten all of the names of these places, but they were very insistent that we had to go check out the area of the city where there are canals. And I guess there's this big advertisement of a person with his arms up running. And they were really excited about this. And they said we had to go check it out before we left the city. So we went that evening, my colleague and I took a picture of that ad and sent it to them. And I think they really we appreciated seeing the sites, and it's a good starting point for our discussions with them.
But let's go on, Scott. He's got back on. And talk about the conference itself and the benefits of joining in and maybe working backwards. So can you talk about some of the partnerships that you've got today that were either associated with or resulted from joining in last year?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I think is worth saying up front is that it can be a slow process to go through the discussions to find a partner for Japan. So I think we're seeing kind of the fruits of our labor of last year coming this year, and we're making a lot of progress, and we're pretty optimistic that we'll finalize a commercial partner in the coming months. But a lot of those discussions we trace back to the trip that we made to Japan last year, both people that we met during the program, as well as conversations that were ongoing, but we had a chance to really kind of inject more urgency into those conversations because we could visit in person and we could meet more members of the team. In fact, we had one situation where we were talking to one group of a large organization and then ended up meeting another part of the organization at the event. And I think that also helped speed things along and accelerate the conversations that we were having with them. So I'd say many threads came out of the event, and we're still pursuing all of those threads and optimistic that it'll lead to a formal partnership very soon.
Was not as successful as yours, Scott, in finding partnerships there. Although I was pursuing it. So our market, what the solution that we're developing is heavily regulated. So we've been at it for 4 years, and we need to go through the clinical trial to bring it out. So I was there mainly to learn about the regulatory process. That's one side. The other side would be to speak with the end users, which I got to speak with 2 doctors, 2 radiologists about that. I got to speak with a lot of women. I brought up the issue. It's in the U.S. It's a common problem. We talk about the dense breast tissue and the breast cancer problem. Everybody knows about it. Everyone's just comfortable talking about it. 50% of the people, women in the U.S. have dense breast tissue, so it's something that everybody knows. I learned it right there. That is, so there's a cultural difference there. So the approach that I have here would not work there. That was a learning process for me to go through. The pitches were amazing opportunities for me. The first pitch, I was nervous, so I fumbled a little bit, but the second one went really well. The Tokyo one was a little bit difficult, but it was great. During the process, I think our relationship deepened with the Walton Cincinnati, so we taking it to the next stage with them. So it was fruitful, but not in terms of finding strategic partnership, which is something that I'm really aggressively going after.
And so, Mika, from your perspective, can you or give some context to both of their experiences since it was their first time there, but you are a native and you've spent much of your life in Japan. Provide some context for what they experienced.
Well, actually, Ryan's wrong about that. So I'm not going to disclose my age, but I've actually only spent altogether 10 years of my life in Japan. And I'll give you a little anecdote. So when I started in the medical device industry in the early 90s, Japan was a significant market, it still is. So I would go and visit Japanese KOLs. You know, the first panel talked about the importance of KOLs, right? And so I go and visit these interventional cardiologists. And one of them, when we went out at night, and he got quite drunk. And this is part of the relationship building, you know, that you have to do. Yeah, you know, endless, rounds of beer and sake and all that. And he got quite drunk. And he goes like, "So Mikasa, I know that you're not really Japanese." And I'm like, "Oh, Tamai sensei, why is that?" You know, first of all, the fact that he referred to my name in, using my first name, as opposed to saying Nishimura-san, that was a clue. I was like, "Your Japanese is too classical for a woman your age." And, which is actually, by the way, an advantage for those of you, the first panel was asking, or somebody asked the first panel, is it terribly important to speak the language? And yes, it's quite helpful if you speak the language, but there are sometimes advantages to being an outsider because you can get away with a lot more than you can, being Japanese or perceived to be pure Japanese. So that's just kind of like one anecdote. When I listen to Payman and Scott talk about their experiences, both of them, had a reason, had a purpose for going to Japan, right? This was not just to go to like Osaka Expo or go to Hiroshima for sightseeing, but they wanted to explore certain things about the market, whether it is about the product market fit, in the case of Paymon, and what's the regulatory pathway, and, is this going to be something that I want to, dedicate precious resources, mainly your time, to doing it, or not. And he got things out of it, even though he didn't get the strategic partnership, right away out of it. And then Scott, in your case, you were actively looking for strategic partnerships. So for any startup, really, you have very limited resources, whether it's funding or the entrepreneur's time. So you have to really know, why are you interested and what are you looking to get out of this trip to really make the most of it? And I think these two really did. So.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Mika. And that goes to my next question is how did you prepare going into this? And did any of us help you out? Or what was that experience like? Start with you, Pam.
You did. Thank you for that. We're incubating with Trippering. So we had that benefit. Steve's communications were frequent, very helpful, very thorough. That was great. But as Mika said, I had a reason to go there. So my recommendation is, I'm sure if you signed up for it and you pitched and you got accepted to the program, you have a reason to go there. So aggressively follow that reason. Try to come out of Japan with something in your pocket.
Yeah, I would say maybe there's two different pieces in my mind. First is your objective of the trip and how do you further that objective as effectively as you can. And I think a lot of that preparation for us was, who are the companies that we're looking to meet? And within those companies, how do we fit in with their corporate strategy, and who are the right people to talk to within the organizations? I mentioned we had been talking to some of the organizations we wanted to meet already, but maybe not quite the right people. So how do we leverage this opportunity to build those relationships further and get to the right people? I would say that's kind of the first piece. Second piece is really getting used to a pretty different business culture. And that definitely was a learning experience for me. And I think a lot of the pre-conference communication was very helpful in this regard. Getting used to carrying around business cards was new. Certainly a different dress code as well compared to Silicon Valley, at least. So a few things that I had to prepare and get used to. And I'm very thankful that I prepared and knew those things going into it.
I can't remember, Scott, if you translated your presentation into Japanese.
I didn't.
You did, yes. So
some people did, yes.
Some of the entrepreneurs did go through the effort of translating their full pitch into Japanese and presented in the Japanese. It was amazing.
Yeah, and Google Translate's your friend. It's getting better and better. It used to be awful, but it's pretty decent now, and they would appreciate the effort. So it doesn't have to be the whole presentation, but maybe saying some greetings, in Japanese, and paying attention to the business cards you get handled. You don't put it immediately in your pocket. Put it right on the table. Refer to it. While you're having these conversations. Those types of things are pretty important in Japan. LinkedIn doesn't work in Japan, so don't expect to make connections through LinkedIn.
Although there's a generational divide on LinkedIn, and so earlier generations or younger generations are quite. I have many contacts now on LinkedIn through Japan. So from the perspective of Triple Ring, so we've been involved in the U.S. Japan Healthcare Connection since its inception in 2014. And there have been mentions about relationship building and sticking with it. And one of the big cultural differences, and there are many, but they're not as thick as you might have heard or might expect, is that it does take some time and showing up again and again and re-cementing relationships on a frequency or periodically goes a very long way to building relationships. And those relationships become very strong and very committed, unlike here in the States or in Europe even. And so we've been going at this for over a decade, and we have fantastic clients that we've done a huge amount of work with and will continue to do more and more work with. But you have to start the relationship. I mean, Paymon was your first visit there, Scott as well. You had some associations going in, but if you you hang in there just even a few years, you really start to see good long-term relationships come from it.
If I add on to that, I think that's very true from our experience. Japanese companies are very deliberate about strategy and what they prioritize. And the flip side of the process taking perhaps longer than what you would expect in the US is once they've made a decision that this is important, that this is worth looking into, they're very committed to that. You don't see the US companies with their strategic reviews and things change every year and they decide to do it and they decide not to do it. In our experience, when we can get to a certain point in discussions with Japanese companies, they're very steady and they continue exploring further and they're very serious in their interest. So that's definitely a benefit as well.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the fact that still, even though, yes, there's more fluidity in the labor market. And back in my dad's generation, you start with one company when you graduate from college and you retire at age 60 or 65 and everybody stay in that company, and that's no longer really the case. But still, there is a lot of longevity and there is a stability among people. And even when they move to a different division or take a different position within the company, there tends to be a pretty good handoff. So as Scott was saying, and the first panel also mentioned that too, that once the decision has been made, it's not like, oh, well, there's a new division president and they're tearing up, all the 3-year strategic plan, or they're reneging on the partnership agreements that they had established, and all that. You can expect to have that longevity of commitment that they have made, and also the relationship. So even if a person moves away to a different division, you should still try to maintain, that relationship, because they may have a somewhat subtle or invisible influence on the original team. So, to Ryan's point, right, Triple Ring has built up relationships through decades now. And that's particularly important in Japan.
And just to echo a couple of things, I mean, the transparency of large Japanese corporates on their strategic plans is fantastic. And they very often, when you first meet them, they say, here is our 3-year plan, here's our 5-year plan, here's the grand future. And they generally will march to that. We've had conversations now, 6-7 years old, that we were told 6 years ago, this is where we're going to end up. And sure enough, 6 years later, there they are. And that's put a plug in for the reverse pitch that we're going to be doing in November. So there are many Japanese corporations that have professionals here, staff here in the Valley. And each year for the last few years, we've been getting them together to do a reverse pitch. So large Japanese corporates telling startups what they need, what they want to see, and what they want to invest in. And that's a bit of a gold mine. And we'll be continuing to bring that out to the audiences here. Okay, so maybe starting with you, Mika, there is a really important, how should I say, dynamic working with Japanese companies, especially Japanese corporates, and their perspective on return on investment. And so can you maybe comment on the cultural differences between, Silicon Valley, for example, and Japan, how you can get investors who are only interested in when are we going to get our money back? And so please.
Yeah, I'm not implying that the Japanese don't care about financial returns, and they could be pretty ruthless, actually, in their negotiations, but they don't expect something to return, 3x in 3 years' time, sort of mentality that US-based VCs, or even Dutch-based VCs like my fund, would have. So they do take a longer period, and longer term view. So a lot of the strategics, for example, in medtech, I can't really speak about pharma, but they do realize that for a U.S. technology, medical technology to come to Japan, that it's going to take some time, right? You may still be perfecting, your technology, so it's not the final commercial version of the product. Negotiating with PMDA about what sort of clinical evidence that they would expect and whether you need to do some additional work, whether it's on the biocompatibility or whether it is about running a clinical study in Japan. They do realize that it's not like, oh, I'm not going to even talk about partnership until I see that it's commercial ready. So they do take a longer point of view about it. But don't, kid yourself that they're not interested, in financial return, because they will be pretty ruthless in their negotiations as well.
And Scott, have you experienced that you're more in their strategic plan than you are in their, their financial plans?
Yeah, it's something we're learning as we go. So hearing Mika's advice is very helpful. But we've seen it play out in a way that is maybe a bit counterintuitive in our discussions with strategics. We're in a space, digital therapeutics, if you will, that is very new, even in the US. We think about the regulatory process, we think about reimbursement, what does adoption look like? All of those things can be open questions that we're answering as we go. And we've seen with some ex-US markets and ex-US strategics that people will hesitate because of that. In Japan, we've seen a little bit more of the opposite, and I think it has to do with this dynamic that we're talking about, because for them, they're not expecting all of the things to be figured out on day one or in year one or year two, as long as it aligns with their strategic direction and they understand the steps that need to be taken, they're very comfortable with that. So that's our experience. So in a counterintuitive way, it's helped us and allowed us to kind of be more on the same page compared to other strategics we've talked to.
All right, so I want one more question. I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. So Peimon, what advice would you give to startups heading over to Japan with us this year and years after about the trip?
I would encourage him to have a phone call with Steve and get a sense of what kind of audience exactly he's going to get in two cities, and not go blank. So I didn't have an investor going with me and just helping me introducing. So it was just me going there, which was great because it's a blank slate. But at the same time, there might have been opportunities that I didn't get to explore. I would approach Mika. I didn't know Mika back then, but pretty much everybody who you can approach who has an experience to gain something from it. Approach me. Approach Scott. Just let us know. Just shoot us an email or shoot anybody an email and have a phone call to get a connection from or to some potential strategic partners on the ground right there. A warm introduction. Again, I didn't have that. I made a mistake of not just going there blank, and I think I might have missed some opportunities. Don't make the mistake that I made.
Thanks. And how about you, Scott?
Yeah, maybe carrying on a similar theme, I think being prepared and doing your homework is really important, and that can take many different forms so that you can make the most of it. And then maybe that ties into the other piece of advice, which is really make the most of it. It's a unique opportunity to be in Japan, to immerse yourself in a very different culture. Had a wonderful time, not just in business discussions, but just generally speaking with the trip and the opportunities. So just make the most of it.
Yeah, I would say that again, and know the why. You're interested in this and go with an open mind, because you're bound to learn things that you didn't even know that you need to pay attention to, or answers to questions that you didn't ask, or just people that you weren't, I encourage you to do the homework in terms of knowing who might be in the audience or reach out to people ahead. But, also take advantage of those chance meetings and keep on nurturing those relationships, even if there isn't quite the immediate quid pro quo, that, okay, well, I'm only going to talk to this person because I think, that company can potentially be a strategic partner. Go with an open mind a bit, but do occasionally revisit your North Star, right? So is this still, the right market for you to pursue after you've learned a lot from this trip and subsequent conversations or, research? And keep asking yourself, because again, as a startup, your time is incredibly precious. Your runway is incredibly short. So you need to keep asking that question, that, okay, is my premise still valid? Or do I need to pivot?
Great advice. Okay, so I'd like to open up to any questions from anyone in the audience, please. And for those online, I'll go ahead and do my best to repeat the questions before we answer. So anybody have something for the panel?
Thank you. You all mentioned about with partnership, you have this moment that you reach to get a commitment. What do you think have helped them to commit? Is it a strategic fit? Is it their budget? Is it just the time and patience?
Strategic fit comes first. I think when there is strategic fit, then everything else comes from that. And without a strategic fit, you're really pushing a boulder up the hill to try to convince them of the market, convince them of the synergies, and that's pretty challenging. So I think it's about finding the right partners. For some partners, maybe it's a fit, but it's not the right timing. So then that becomes more of a ongoing conversation that you need to have and be patient about. But I think most important is strategic fit.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is about strategic fit. Just one additional thing that her question triggered in my mind, because I've been an entrepreneur myself here in the US. Our company got sold to Boston Scientific for a decent sum of money a few years ago. And the way that entrepreneurs approach a strategic in negotiations in the US, is of a certain style, right? Any sort of pitch deck that you have, talks about how vast this market opportunity is and how easily identifiable these patients are and how your technology is so unique and, does everything, including baking bread. But in Japan, you can't sort of approach it that way. You really, really have to do the homework, as Scott and Payman was saying, about what's the plan for this company, and honestly, does your technology really fit? And one of the people on the first panel was talking about, you have to have the credibility in terms of your technical and clinical expertise. So you can't just be like, painting this amazing picture from a commercial point of view and expect that to carry your sway into the strategic. It has to be really, really grounded in one, understanding of where they're going, and two, from a technology and clinical patient care point of view, does this, really speak to that? And then comes the business side of things. So just kind of be careful about how you paint yourself to a Japanese strategic, which may be different from how you paint yourself to an American company.
I would add that, from our experience, it's a very sciencey kind of a technology. It's new in an old market, in a very highly consolidated market. Japan is attractive because in radiology, they have a very strong presence there. But having a new way of bringing it out, I find it very interesting that it's all about science technology. So that the picture, we approach them from the problem perspective, approach them from this could solve that 87% dense breast tissue problem in Japan. That really doesn't resonate, but the technology, the science of it does resonate. And that's the learning lesson I had to go through to get to.
And the last couple of things I'll add is, once you've demonstrated strategic fit and that you're going to bring value to a relationship, be patient and enjoy the process because it's going to be thorough and it's going to be done well. And it takes more time than it does here, but it's very satisfying because you know it's going to be perfect once you have your commitment done. Other questions? Oh, please.
Okay, so I have a better story when I moderate these panels when I go to Japan. So many years ago, like 1990 or so, I'm walking around the Imperial Palace with my people from a Japanese leasing company, and we're going there, and they said, you know, this whole small area of real estate is worth more than the entire value of California real estate. So we had a nice dinner and stuff. So then the next morning, I'm coming out of the Okura Hotel, and the Goldman Sachs car picks us up, and we go to like, oh, this bank's gone now, Imperial Bank of Japan now, it's been merged out. But I go there, the tea ladies give us the tea, and then the people coming in, they're just bowing their heads, and they said, you know, they're very sad. They says, you know, last night Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. So I think I was probably at the top of the Nikkei stock market, although it wasn't actually the top, but pretty close. But then, you know, the deals that we were going to make in 6 months were going to take 18 to 24 months. So fortunately, what did I do? You know, the Japanese only have team flags. So I had brought baseball cards from all the American players who played in the Pacific and the Central Leagues. And I had a stack of these. You know, I had to go to the baseball card shops and stuff. And so we had a good time. We went to the Tokyo Dome many times. We ended up just touring around. We did everything. We had absolutely no business conducted. But in 1 week, we all had a hell of a time. And even years later, people said this was the greatest time because of 6 companies I visited, or 8 companies. And I had some lifelong friends after that. When they came to San Francisco, we'd always go out. So you've got to be prepared for the unexpected, although I didn't expect that.
No, I don't think I can really beat that story. Yeah, but you know what I find really encouraging about Japan. I actually so again, I told you guys already that I only spent 10 years of my life actually living in Japan, and I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to actually live and work in Japan as a woman in the early 90s. You know, that was a pretty challenging place to be a professional. And you know, and then Japan, of course, after the market crash, the bubble burst, no longer, you know, did that area, you know, little area in Tokyo, you know, was worth, you know, more than California, for sure. And, you know, it was quite frustrating to watch this country that I still love and was until recently, you know, still a Japanese national, to see that, you know, go through the doldrums for many decades. Now I do feel like there is renewed energy, and there are certainly more people, you know, wanting to pursue entrepreneurial ventures and not be satisfied just working for a brand name, you know, corporation. That, you know, a lot more investment dollars flowing to Japanese companies and interest in bringing innovative technologies into the marketplace. So I do feel like things are really changing, and it's a great time to be looking at Japan again.
We're at time, so we're going to let Mika have the last word. And everybody, please thank our panelists for a really interesting conversation.
All right. Thank you, Ryan and panel, for bringing some personal stories and experiences from your times in Japan with the conference and elsewhere. And you know, this year's program, as was mentioned, will take place in Tokyo and Osaka. The Tokyo event takes place on September 16th, and the Osaka event takes place on September 19th. So if anybody here happens to be planning to travel to Japan, let us know, and hopefully you can make one of the events, or if you're online joining us, hopefully you can join us as well. So Japan Society of Northern California does a lot more things than just healthcare. It is one of our big areas of program activities, but it's not the only one. We do a lot of programs on technology, business, policy, and other things, and Japanese culture and language as well. We teach Japanese language lessons. So for those of you who want to work on your Japanese, you can start your company and then go over and really function effectively. You can sign up for our language classes and others. And we also have a lot of social and other activities that we run as well. So I encourage you to sign up on our website for our mailing list, become a member, support Japan Society. This is actually our 120th anniversary. We were started in 1905. And so have been through many different iterations of the society, but been around a long time. So I encourage you to take part. And now we're going to wrap up today's program. And thanks to Wilson Sonsini, we have some refreshments that people can enjoy. And so those are actually out the door and around right behind us here if you want to go out and enjoy those. And there's some drinks here if you want to take those too. And in conclusion, just want to thank everybody for coming today and hope to see you again soon at some of our other programs. Thank you.
Building bridges between the United States and Japan since 1905. Japan Society.